You think you saw everything that happened at Wargames? You think you understand what really went down when Seth Rollins made his shocking return and destroyed CM Punk's chances of victory? Let me tell you something right now, what you witnessed was just the surface of something far deeper, far more personal, and far more devastating than anyone realizes. While everyone is busy celebrating or criticizing the return of the architect, they're missing the real story behind why this happened, when it was planned, and what it means for the future of both these men's careers. If you click away from this video right now, you're going to miss the most crucial details that explain everything about this attack, details that WWE doesn't want you connecting, because once you see the full picture, you'll realize this wasn't just about one match or one moment. This was about settling scores that go back further than most people remember, and before this video ends, I'm going to show you exactly why Seth Rollins had no choice but to do what he did, and why CM Punk should have seen this coming from a mile away. The evidence is staring us right in the face and has been for weeks, but nobody wanted to put the pieces together until it was too late. And if you want to stay ahead of every major WWE story and never miss another shocking moment like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we're diving deep into stories that other channels won't touch, stories that require you to look beyond the surface and understand the psychology and politics that drive everything in professional wrestling. Wargames was supposed to be the ultimate test of forced alliances and bitter rivalries colliding inside the most demonic structure in wrestling, a match where personal hatred had to be temporarily set aside for the sake of team victory. CM Punk found himself fighting alongside men he's despised for years, men he's traded insults with in promos and on social media, men he never thought he'd share a locker room with, let alone a team in the biggest match of the year. On one side you had Punk teaming with Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and the Usos, a collection of superstars who under normal circumstances would rather tear each other apart than work together for any common goal. These weren't friends or even friendly rivals, these were men with deep personal issues and conflicting agendas who were forced into an alliance purely because the alternative was worse. The tension in that team was visible from the moment they were announced. You could see it in their body language during the build-up, you could hear it in their promos where they made it clear this partnership was temporary and based solely on necessity rather than any genuine desire to help each other succeed. On the other side was Team Vision, a group led by the monstrous presence of wrestlers like Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker, each one bringing their own brand of destruction and their own reasons for wanting to destroy Punk's team. Lesnar is the beast incarnate who thrives on violence and dominance, someone who doesn't need complicated motivations because pure destructive instinct is enough. Drew McIntyre has been on a path of destruction for months, dealing with his own demons and frustrations about his position in WWE, taking out those frustrations on anyone in his path. Logan Paul is the social media star turned legitimate wrestler who's proven time and again that he belongs in WWE despite the skeptics who thought he was just a celebrity getting an easy ride. Bronson Reed is a tsunami of a human being who crushes opponents with his size and power, someone who's been building momentum by destroying everyone put in front of him. And Braun Breaker is the second-generation superstar carrying the legendary Steiner name while carving out his own identity as a future world champion, someone WWE is clearly positioning as a cornerstone of the next generation. The match itself was exactly what you'd expect from Wargames, absolute carnage from bell to bell with bodies being thrown into steel cage walls, blood staining the canvas and dripping onto the metal structure, weapons being used in creative and brutal ways, and the crowd losing their minds at every near fall and every devastating move that looked like it could end the match. The atmosphere was electric in a way that only the biggest WWE matches can create, where you can feel the energy through your television screen, where every person in that arena is completely invested in what's happening, where social media is exploding with reactions in real time. This wasn't just another match on another show, this was Wargames, one of the most anticipated events of the entire year, where careers can be made or broken in a single night, where moments are created that fans will remember and discuss for decades to come. CM Punk was in his element despite everything he's been through over the past few years, despite the injuries that have plagued him and raised questions about whether his body could still handle the punishment of wrestling at the highest level, despite the controversies that follow him everywhere he goes like a dark cloud that never dissipates no matter how much time passes, despite the years he spent away from wrestling thinking he'd never return to the industry that made him famous. He was fighting like a man possessed, like someone who had something to prove not just to the fans or to WWE management but to himself, throwing strikes with bad intentions and selling every move like his life depended on the outcome. Every punch he threw carried the weight of someone trying to prove they're not washed up, that they're not past their prime despite being in their mid-40s and having taken years off from the physical grind of professional wrestling, that they can still hang with the best wrestlers in the world today who are younger, fresher, and haven't accumulated the same level of wear and tear on their bodies. The momentum was shifting in his team's favor as the match progressed, the crowd could feel it happening, the commentary team was building to what seemed like an inevitable victory for Punk's squad. It looked like Punk might actually be on the verge of delivering a major victory for his team, cementing his return to WWE as a resounding success, proving all the doubters wrong who said he couldn't recapture his former glory. The narrative was writing itself, the underdog team of rivals overcoming their differences to defeat a seemingly unstoppable force, with CM Punk as the emotional center of that story, the veteran leader who brought everyone together when it mattered most. Everything was going according to plan, the script was unfolding exactly as fans hoped it would, until everything changed in the blink of an eye and the entire trajectory of the match, the storyline, and multiple careers shifted in a direction nobody anticipated. The cameras caught something strange happening on the outside of the cage, something that initially didn't register as important because there was so much action happening inside the structure that demanded attention. A figure dressed entirely in black from head to toe with their face completely covered by a mask was scaling the massive structure with frightening precision and athleticism. This wasn't some clumsy fan trying to get their 15 minutes of fame or some random interference that happens occasionally in wrestling. This person moved like they knew exactly what they were doing, like they'd practiced this moment over and over until every movement was perfect, like they'd visualized this scenario hundreds of times in their mind before executing it in reality. The climbing technique was professional, the body movements were controlled and efficient, everything about this person's approach screamed experienced wrestler who knew how to work in and around the Wargame structure. The crowd immediately sensed something was wrong, their cheers turning to confused murmurs as they tried to figure out who this mysterious person was and what team they were there to help or hurt. In war games, interference can come from anywhere and allegiances can shift in an instant, so nobody knew if this was good news or bad news for either team competing inside the demonic structure. The uncertainty added another layer of tension to an already intense situation, with fans leaning forward in their seats, with people at home moving closer to their screens, with everyone trying to get a better look at this masked figure to find some identifying characteristic that would reveal their identity before the big reveal happened. The speculation started immediately, with fans in the arena turning to each other asking who this could be, with social media lighting up with theories and guesses, with everyone suddenly more invested in this one element than in the actual match that was still happening inside the cage. The masked figure reached the top of the cage and paused for just a moment, looking down at all the chaos happening below like a hunter surveying prey before the kill, like a predator choosing the perfect moment to strike for maximum impact. Then they dropped down into the cage with athletic grace that immediately told everyone watching this was someone with serious wrestling training and experience, landing in a way that showed this was someone who knew how to work inside the demonic structure, someone who'd probably been in War Games matches before or at least trained extensively in similar environments. The landing alone eliminated a lot of potential suspects because not just anyone can drop from that height into a steel cage and land on their feet ready to immediately engage in physical competition, that requires a specific skill set that only elite-level professional wrestlers possess. CM Punk was in the middle of beating down Braun Breaker at that exact moment, delivering a series of strikes that had the younger wrestler reeling and looking vulnerable for one of the first times in the entire match. The crowd was chanting Punk's name with that familiar rhythm that's followed him throughout his legendary career, from his independent wrestling days to his first WWE run to his time in other promotions and now back to WWE. It seemed like he was about to set up his team for victory, about to hit his signature move and secure the pin that would end the match and give his squad the win they needed. Everything was going according to plan, the hero was about to triumph, the feel-good story was reaching its climax, until the masked figure locked eyes with him across the ring. The moment their eyes met, something changed in the atmosphere of the entire arena. The masked figure didn't look at any member of Punk's team standing in various corners of the cage, didn't look at any member of the opposing team who theoretically should have been their target if they were there to help Team Vision. They looked specifically and exclusively at CM Punk. That focus was unmistakable, that intention was clear even before a single move was made, that targeting told everyone watching that this person was here for one reason and one reason only, to take out CM Punk regardless of what it meant for the match outcome or for either team's chances of victory. This wasn't about helping anyone win, this was personal, this was about sending a message, this was about making a statement that would reverberate through WWE for months to come. You could see it in Punk's body language even before anything happened, a slight hesitation in his movements, a moment of recognition that flashed across his face as his brain started processing what his eyes were seeing. His fighting stance changed subtly, his focus shifted from Braun Breaker to this new threat, his expression went from confident aggression to cautious confusion in the span of maybe 2 seconds. Somewhere deep down he knew who was under that mask even though his brain probably didn't want to accept it, even though the timing didn't make sense, even though this person was supposed to be out injured and weeks away from returning to action. The realization was starting to dawn on him but there wasn't enough time to fully process it before the attack came. The superkick came so fast that most people didn't even see it coming, a picture-perfect strike that connected flush with Punk's jaw with the kind of precision that only comes from years of practice and repetition. Punk's head snapped backward violently from the impact, his body went rigid for a split second before his knees buckled, and he stumbled backward into the ropes that kept him from falling completely to the canvas. The sound of boot meeting jaw echoed through the arena despite all the other noise, that sickening thud that makes everyone watching wince in sympathy pain. But the attacker wasn't done, wasn't satisfied with just one devastating strike, wasn't interested in leaving anything to chance or giving Punk any opportunity to recover or defend himself from what was coming next. They grabbed Punk with authority, positioning his body exactly where they needed him with the kind of ring awareness that comes from years of main event experience. Every movement was deliberate and efficient, no wasted motion, no hesitation, just pure calculated execution of a plan that had clearly been rehearsed mentally if not physically. They lifted Punk into position and then delivered the move that sent shockwaves through the entire arena and immediately told everyone watching exactly who was under that mask. The stomp. Not just any stomp but the stomp, the signature finishing move that belongs to one man and one man only in all of professional wrestling, the move that's ended countless matches and crushed countless dreams over the past decade, the move that's become as iconic and recognizable as any finisher in WWE history. The execution was flawless, the timing was perfect, the impact was devastating. CM Punk's face hit the canvas with brutal force that made everyone in the arena gasp collectively. The sound of his body hitting the mat was amplified by the cage structure surrounding them. His body went completely limp immediately after impact, no movement, no attempt to protect himself or roll away, just dead weight lying motionless on the canvas. The attack took maybe 10 seconds from start to finish, but those 10 seconds changed everything about the match, about the storyline, about the future of WWE programming, about the trajectories of multiple careers, about what fans could expect in the coming months. In 10 seconds, the entire landscape of WWE's main event scene shifted dramatically in a direction nobody saw coming. Braun Breaker, showing the ring awareness and killer instinct that's made him one of the fastest rising stars in the company despite being relatively early in his WWE career, didn't waste a single moment questioning what just happened or trying to figure out who the masked figure was. He saw an opportunity and seized it immediately, pouncing on the unconscious Punk like a predator who recognizes when prey is vulnerable and defenseless. He hooked Punk's leg with authority, pulling it back as far as possible to make sure there was no chance of a kickout, pressing his weight down on Punk's shoulders to keep them flat against the canvas. The referee, who had been temporarily distracted by all the chaos, slid into position and began the count. 1, 2, 3. The match was over just like that, decided not by the competitors who'd been battling for over 30 minutes but by an outside interference that came out of nowhere and turned everything upside down in seconds. Team Vision had won War Games, but nobody in that arena was celebrating the victory or talking about how Breaker got the pin or what this meant for the winning team. The victory was completely overshadowed, rendered almost meaningless, by the one question that was burning in everyone's mind and exploding across social media faster than wildfire. Who was under that mask? Who just cost CM Punk and his team the biggest match of the year? Who delivered the stomp with such precision and familiarity? Who had the motivation to target Punk so specifically and viciously? The speculation was immediate and intense, with theories flying around before the attacker had even left the cage. The attacker didn't stick around to celebrate with Team Vision or reveal themselves in a dramatic mask removal moment that would have given fans the immediate satisfaction of knowing who did this. They didn't acknowledge what they'd just done, didn't play to the crowd, didn't cut a promo explaining their actions or motivations. They simply exited the cage with the same calculated movements and precision they'd used to enter it, climbing back over the structure and disappearing into the backstage area while chaos erupted all around them. The mystery was intentional, the prolonged uncertainty was part of the psychology, keeping fans guessing and talking and debating was clearly part of the plan. This person knew exactly what they were doing from a storytelling perspective, understanding that sometimes the anticipation and speculation is as valuable as the actual reveal. Commentary was screaming, trying to make sense of what just happened, with multiple voices talking over each other as they attempted to process the shock and provide some kind of explanation or theory for the viewers at home. The crowd was a mixture of shock and anger, with some fans booing the interference while others were simply stunned into silence trying to figure out what they'd just witnessed. Punk's teammates were checking on him while trying to process the betrayal they just witnessed, looking around frantically trying to spot the attacker who'd already vanished, dealing with their own confusion about what this meant and who could have done this. Social media went absolutely nuclear within seconds, with fans posting theories and speculation about who could have done this and why, with wrestling fans around the world simultaneously reaching the same conclusion about the identity of the attacker based on that one signature move. The stomp made it obvious to everyone that this had to be Seth Rollins, the architect, the visionary, the revolutionary, the man who's been absent from WWE television for months while recovering from injury that had sidelined him at what should have been the peak of his career. The man who supposedly, according to all reports and official WWE statements, was still weeks away from being medically cleared to return to action, the man who fans had been asking about, constantly wanting to know when he'd be back and what he'd do upon his return. Nobody expected him back this soon, nobody anticipated his return happening in this manner, nobody predicted he'd align himself against CM Punk and with Team Vision. The shock was genuine across the entire wrestling world because this wasn't a return that had been telegraphed or hinted at through the usual channels that WWE uses to build anticipation for major comebacks. Multiple sources backstage confirmed within hours of War Games ending that yes, the man under the mask was indeed Seth Rollins, making his return not with fanfare or celebration or a hero's welcome but with an attack that cost CM Punk the biggest match of the year and immediately positioned Rollins as one of the top villains in the company. Seth didn't come back to challenge for a championship that he's held multiple times throughout his career, didn't come back to reunite with old friends and former Shield brothers, didn't come back for a feel-good moment where fans could celebrate one of their favorites returning healthy and ready to compete. He came back specifically to destroy CM Punk, to make a statement, to align himself with the future of WWE and Braun Breaker, which means this attack wasn't a one-time thing but rather the beginning of something much bigger that's going to play out over months of programming and probably culminate at one of WWE's biggest events. But the question everyone needs to be asking, the question that's going to drive this entire storyline forward, is why? Why would Seth Rollins make his return in this way? Why target CM Punk so viciously when they've had a complicated but generally respectful relationship over the years? Why align with Braun Breaker and Team Vision instead of going after his own singles opportunities? The answers to these questions reveal everything about Seth's mindset, his motivations, his long-term planning, and what we can expect from him in the coming months. Seth Rollins doesn't do anything randomly or impulsively. Every major move he's made throughout his entire career has been calculated and purposeful, driven by clear motivations even when those motivations weren't immediately obvious to fans or other wrestlers. When he betrayed the Shield back in their prime, it seemed random and shocking, but it was actually strategic, positioning himself for a singles run and a championship opportunity that might not have come if he'd stayed loyal to his brothers. When he cashed in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania in that legendary moment, the timing was absolutely perfect to maximize impact and guarantee success. Every championship reign he's had has been built on careful planning and execution, on understanding psychology and politics, on knowing when to strike and when to be patient. So this attack on Punk had to have a reason, a motivation that goes deeper than just wanting to make an impact on his return or create a shocking moment that gets people talking. Think about what Seth has been going through while he's been out injured, sitting at home watching WWE programming every week, seeing other wrestlers take the spotlight he believes belongs to him, watching storylines develop without his involvement. Specifically, he's been watching CM Punk insert himself into the main event scene despite all the baggage he brings with him, despite the controversies that follow him, despite the questions about whether he can still perform at an elite level after so much time away and so many injuries. Watching Punk get opportunity after opportunity even though he walked away from wrestling years ago claiming he was done forever and badmouthed the entire industry in interviews and podcasts. Watching Punk get treated like royalty when he returned to WWE, getting major matches and prominent positions immediately without having to work his way back up the card the way most returning wrestlers have to do. Meanwhile, Seth has been grinding for over a decade without taking extended breaks by choice, carrying companies on his back during difficult periods, working through injuries that probably should have kept him out longer, doing every media appearance and promotional obligation asked of him, being the reliable company guy who shows up and performs regardless of circumstances. The resentment would be natural for anyone in Seth's position, watching someone who quit get rewarded while your own loyalty and dedication sometimes feels overlooked or taken for granted. But Seth Rollins isn't the type to just sit around feeling resentful and bitter, complaining on social media or in interviews about how unfair everything is. He's the type to take action, to make statements that force everyone to pay attention, to create moments that shift narratives and change the conversation entirely. At Wargames he took the most impactful action possible by not just costing Punk a match but by aligning himself with the future of WWE and Braun Breaker, sending multiple messages simultaneously about his intentions and his vision for his next chapter. If you've made it this far into this video, then you understand that what happened at Wargames was just the beginning of what could be the most intense and personal rivalry of the entire year, maybe of the entire era we're currently in. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss a single update about this developing story, because Seth Rollins vs CM Punk is going to dominate WWE programming for the foreseeable future, and every moment is going to be absolute must-see television that you're going to want to analyze and discuss with other wrestling fans who are just as invested in the story as you are.